5.5 billion US dollars. That's the cost to build this theme park, which has been long anticipated and expected here in China. Will it really be able to earn the money?
Well, we just heard in your report that annually it could generate income, not necessarily profit. Just the first year, if that really happens, that would make about 8 billion US dollars in just 1 year. That's already bigger than the total investment, if we believe it.
If we believe it. When was the last time for you, Rick? Let me ask you an easier question. To the Disneyland or Disney World?
Well, for me it was 40 years ago, 1976, when I was a college student in Disneyland, and I remember the experience. It was the mouse experience that you would have, but what I also remember for a poor college student is that it was very expensive.
Yeah.
That they pushed the bounds of how much a family would be willing to pay for this experience, and they're still doing it.
That was $20 at your time.
Right, exactly.
And now it's about $60 to $70 here in China.
Shanghai.
In Shanghai.
Yeah, 500 RMB.
Right?
For an adult.
Exactly. And that's not during the rush hour or the rush time, as they say, the holiday season. It could be even higher. But what about you, Mr. Saito? The Japanese seem to like a Disney park, anything American theme parks, it seems. What about your experience?
Well, I mean, I think that they take the good parts of the American model there, but I think if you look at all the Disneylands around the world, there are slight tweaks that are cultural adaptations there. But back to the pricing thing, I think that the high price is actually, at least in Japan, an allure itself, that you're going to somewhere special, you're paying this kind of money. And so that, ironically, I think, leads to part of its mystique and praise from the people who come.
Yes, indeed. Talking about trying to bring in local culture, it seems that Disneyland here in China did try its best, even when it comes to food, which of course the Chinese care the most. They even have the, all the Chinese food being made into the shape of the Mickey Mouse or the many of the other characters of their cartoons. Having said that, though, what do you make of this Chinese culture meeting Western culture, and that's very popular culture, shall I say, to say the least, when it comes to Disneyland and Disney World. As Rick just mentioned, as a very young man, he went there, but not anymore.
I think there should be a debate even inside Walt Disney Company, what Western or American they should really authentically copy into China, and what local culture can be adapted into this Disney resort. But we still have time to check out what's actually inside it when it opens officially on the 16th of June. But when I checked out their official website, I couldn't find Mulan, because as a Chinese, I would be looking for something like Mulan that Chinese can associate among very limited number of Disney figures, but I couldn't find it.
Does it matter when it comes to business?
Well, actually, yeah, because for a time when Mulan was very popular, and Chinese felt very proud that part of their culture can be written and displayed in American performing art.
What about from a journalistic perspective, Rick? I mean, you have been a very seasoned journalist covering U.S. elections and many other things, and now you are here for journalism in business about business. What do you make of this? Does it make sense, first of all, that the Chinese are so much interested in a theme park coming from the U.S.?
To me, I mean, as someone who covers American politics, I find Disney fascinating, because Disney is, in some ways, quintessential America to the world. And Disney has not always traveled well. Euro Disney has had a number of problems over the years, and particularly at the beginning. And I think Disney learned a lot from that. I mean, Disney in Japan is far more successful. Disney in Hong Kong is more successful. And I saw a film and watched a speech by Bob Iger, the CEO of Walt Disney in Shanghai last fall. And they really have tried to figure out how they can reach out to Chinese people, everything from architecture to the food, without compromising what makes Disney Disney, which is the mouse, which is the Magic Kingdom, the architecture that they have of some of their buildings.
Mr. Saito, both Japan and China have a very long history, and there are enough fascinating stuff in our own histories that one might wonder how sustainable will Disney's theme park or others' theme park coming into these countries and be able to function in the near future and particularly in the long future.
I think there's a fundamental difference between Disneyland and many of the other competitors. If you look at it, it's a complete platform. And platforms, whether it's selling an iPhone or whether it's a ticket to Disneyland, it really feeds upon itself, that the movies and the TV productions that they do get branded into products that then get sold at the Disneyland. And so it's this virtuous cycle that I think Disney does very, very well. And then they make these little adaptations to various countries. I found out a small bit of trivia that the castle in the original Disneyland is based on Sleeping Beauty, but in Japan they thought that it would not go well, so they used Cinderella instead. I'd be curious to see who the main character for the castle in Shanghai is, but I think it's Disney's maintaining the Disney-like properties, but also allowing the flexibility of the local partners to adjust for these things. And then, that we have this global phenomenon and platform that feeds upon itself is I think, quite impressive and somewhat unique.
All right, I'll bear that in mind. The castle is the message. I'll go ahead and take a look. Talking about theme parks, of course, it's not just Disneyland in China. Theme parks in China have been emerging in this country back in the year 1980s, and industrial research shows that the number of theme parks in China grew to over 30 at the end of the 1980s. That was very early years, as you may know. It was the time when China just opened up to the outside world. 1990s saw a huge leap in figure. By 2013, already 2,500 parks were open to tourists. And of course, more have been built in the past few years as well. Mr. Dong, here comes the question. A lot of competition. And will the local ones be able to compete with Disneyland? And will Disney have more franchise in China or different kinds of cooperation? What do you think? Can those business models be possible in China?
Well, at least I think the Chinese, you may call them copycats, but those local competitors or developers, they have some models available for them to learn from, but at the same time, they also need to come up with something different. And that's the even bigger challenge. Of course, the advantages they enjoy, that the local government will also would always try to do something favorable to local competitors to cultivate and nurture them. But at the same time, what they lack significantly and cannot, make up within a short period of time is they don't have the the culture behind the theme parks, and you don't have related film industries, film business associated with the park itself. And also Chinese developers would copy from appearance and the most obvious ones very quickly, but without leaving enough budget to do future or softer things to further improve, and then it loses steam very quickly and loses innovative power to catch up.
Yes,
and
indeed.
That will be bigger challenge, midway or in the latter phase.
We talk about theme park in China. Although theme parks are growing in China, as we mentioned earlier, not all of them perform very well. We also got some numbers for you. Looking at this research, over 300 theme parks with an initial investment of over $7.5 million US in China, but over 70%, 70 of them are seeing negative growth of profit all over this country. Will Disneyland be able to provide an interesting case study for all the other Chinese collaborators or competitors in the future?
Well, I think that Disneyland is unique, but it also reflects some of the big issues with theme parks. They're very expensive to launch, they're very expensive to keep going, and you need a constant flow of people. To me, the word that's most important is unique. There has to be something special that gets a large number of people there, because you have to have a huge crowd to keep paying the upkeep and to keep staying up with the times, modernization. Disney can do it, but there are a lot of the copycats will have problems. If people don't have a good experience, there's not going to be good word of mouth. And Disney gets a lot of free advertising. I mean, the products and the movies
like
all
what we
play
are doing
off.
right now.
And if you're an independent theme park where you're trying to launch it, or if you're a real estate venture and you want a theme park to draw people to your new development, it's a lot harder. And so I think Disney has a better chance of surviving because of all the advantages of Walt Disney Company.
But Rick, may I just follow up by asking you, I mean, American culture, at the very beginning of China's opening up stage, it was very fascinating to many of the common Chinese. But as more Chinese travel abroad to different kinds of countries, including also studying in the United States and many other things, also to other countries as well, is American culture, particularly as pop culture as Disneyland, as ancient as Disneyland theme parks, are they still going to be attractive, culturally speaking, at all in the near future even?
Well, the short answer is it's not as unique because a lot of Chinese people have visited Disneyland in the United States. But think of the size of China. Despite the huge number of tourists who have left China, there's still many, many more Chinese tourists who don't travel to the United States. And Disneyland in Shanghai will be their closest that they will get to America. So yeah, it's not the highest of American culture. It is pop culture, but it is the kind of thing that is accessible to the world.
Mr. Saito, what do you make of it? I mean, are the Japanese still interested in theme parks, especially American theme parks? What would the Japanese experience be able to tell us about China, possibly?
No, I think it's very much understood and accepted and obviously growing even in Japan at this moment. I think the distinction that you have to make with the Disneyland business model is that it's not a real estate play versus it's really an entertainment organization, that the business model is fascinating if you think about it. Going back to the content that I just described, Star Wars is now a Disney property. How that gets put into a movie, then into merchandising, and then a ride that gets refreshed every few years in a Disneyland resort. Like the prior guest mentioned, the uniqueness is maintained in a Disneyland type model because it has these other facets to build upon. So I think, yeah, for other theme parks to compete, it's very difficult to do so because you don't have that content creation that Disneyland is doing so well. With that, I think places like Tokyo are feeding off that, and I think have a successful model that is still growing.